What's up, YouTube? I'm here with our friendly neighborhood garbage can because today we are literally throwing things away that have been contaminated with gluten. If you're starting a gluten-free diet, whether you have celiac disease or gluten intolerance, these are some things that you need to be aware of that have been contaminated with gluten. Now, I'm not saying that when you're starting out on the gluten-free diet that you need to immediately go and throw out all of these things because that would be really expensive. And starting out the gluten-free diet is overwhelming enough. The purpose of this video is just to bring to your attention places in your kitchen that gluten can hide so that you're aware and then you can do what feels best for you. The information that I'm talking about in this video come from the gluten intolerance group and Beyond Celiac. And I'm not actually going to throw away the draft. He's right there. For starters, you'll want to get rid of food that contains gluten or that has been contaminated with gluten. I'm talking about things like bread. We got Dave's Killer Gluten here. We've got artisan gluten here. I'm actually going to put them in their own bag because I don't want that gluten going nowhere. That's good. It's in. Toasters. I'm holding a toaster oven, but if you have a traditional toaster, like the little springy pop-up kind, you will probably want to replace that toaster because they're not easy to clean. And if you've been toasting gluten in there, there's gluten crumbs everywhere, and that will make it not safe for you on the gluten-free diet to eat out of that toaster. If you have a toaster oven, you can maybe get away with continuing to use it. You'll just want to make sure you put down aluminum foil or something so that you're not putting your gluten-free bread on top of gluten breadcrumbs. We're gonna still just go ahead and throw this one away because it's a little rickety and old. Let's see. That did not fit as well as I thought it was, but we're gonna soldier on. It's obvious that bread and baked goods contain gluten, but there are less obvious things that contain gluten, like oats. Unless oats are labeled as gluten-free, they're not gluten-free because they've been contaminated with gluten-containing grains during processing and harvesting, so we're gonna need to throw this away too. There. You'll also wanna be aware of condiments which have been cross-contacted with gluten. When someone takes, for example, mayo, spreads mayo on a piece of gluten bread and then sticks that knife back in the mayo jar, that mayo now has gluten in it and isn't safe for those with celiac disease and gluten intolerance. So any type of condiment that could have been cross-contacted with gluten, you should probably replace. I have to take the toaster out. Mayo. Things like peanut butter or nutso, if you're a nutso fan. I had to take these out to make everything fit. I'm gonna put them back in. Now things like salad dressing, you'll probably be safe because you're not sticking knives down into the salad dressing. But if you have blue cheese dressing, you should definitely just throw it away because blue cheese is gross. Let's talk about cleaning supplies like brushes and sponges. If you've used your sponges and brushes to scrub things that have gluten on them, you'll want to change out and replace your brushes and sponges because they'll hold on to that gluten and then spread it all over when you're cleaning with them. So we're gonna chuck those. You may want to consider replacing things like oven mitts. Yes, you could wash these and you get the outside clean, but if you touch gluten, then put your hands in here, then the insides of these have gluten in them, and I don't know how well that gluten's gonna come out if you wash it. Another fabric thing to consider replacing is a tortilla warmer. If you've used it to hold gluten-containing tortillas, it's going to be hard to get that gluten out and you'll want to replace it. Now, I know a lot of you are thinking, Jordan, not that many people have tortilla warmers, and that's the problem. I'm bringing this to your attention because everybody should have tortilla warmers because tacos. Tacos are the reason that everybody should have tortilla warmers, especially if you're gluten-free. Tacos are easy to make gluten-free and they taste amazing. So I reached out to my cousin who's in med school and is not a medical expert because he's only a med school student, but he is a taco expert. And he said that regardless of religion or politics or nationality, that everyone should be eating tacos because it is the ultimate source of joy in your life. So you should have a tortilla warmer so that you can enjoy more often tacos. Get one of these. Things with small holes or scratches like colanders or strainers or sieves or whatever you want to call these things can also trap gluten, so it may be a good idea to replace these. Also, this sieve strainer thing is so small that the only thing it's good for is holding half of an egg or one bite of cantaloupe. And it's also good for throwing away because it's so useless. You'll also want to be wary of things like cutting boards that get scratched when you cut on them with knives because knives are sharp. So these little scratches again can contain gluten. So you may want to either replace your cutting boards or get cutting boards that are only used for gluten-free things. If you don't want to replace your cutting boards, you can just put a piece of parchment paper over them when you're cutting on them to prevent cross contact with gluten. So we can go ahead and check these. We're getting full in there. I would also add that if you have any of these really thin, flimsy plastic kinds of cutting boards, you should just get rid of them because they're awful. I mean, the only thing they're good for is saving space, but how big is a regular cutting board? Like maybe 3/4 of an inch thick? Get it all to fit. That's great. If you're finding this video useful, I would super appreciate it if you give that like button a little tappity tap tap. The more people like this video, the more YouTube will show it to other people and also benefit them. So go ahead and give that like button just a little tappity tap tap. Just tap it real nice. Other things that can get scratched and hold gluten in little crevices, things like plastic mixing bowls. We call these our Bob the Builder bowls because they look like construction hats. Just go ahead and throw those away. Things like plastic serving utensils or silicone spatulas, all of these can get scratched and hold gluten in them. Just throw this away too. Even things like non-stick pans can get scratched and hold gluten in those scratches. We're running out of room. It's very securely stacked. It's not going anywhere. Now, things like metal baking sheets and metal muffin pans aren't really going to get scratches that hold gluten, but they do have a lot of nooks and crannies, especially muffin pans. Also, things like waffle makers would be very hard to clean, so you might want to replace it if you want to make gluten-free waffles. I don't know if we can fit these in the garbage can, though. We're going to just put these in a different garbage can. It's over here. Don't worry, I disposed of them. You also need to be careful with wooden things, wooden utensils, wooden rolling pins, and even wooden cutting boards, although we already talked about cutting boards. Wood is very porous and therefore can hold on to the gluten, so you might want to replace wooden things as well. Thumbs up! Well, there you have it. That's a pretty full garbage can. One thing I would add is that you don't need to throw away your life. In fact, we're going to stick this thing on the fridge and proudly show it. Yeah, adjusting to the gluten-free life can be difficult, and maybe at times it can seem like it's no fun, but you can do it and still have an awesome life. Everyone that I know that's gluten-free is flippin' amazing. So you don't have to throw away your life by going gluten-free. You can still have an awesome time. If you are just starting out on the gluten-free diet, you'll want to check out my other video about 7 mistakes that I made on the gluten-free diet. That way you don't have to make the same ones, and I'll put it right there. Peace.